booth here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. That is Simon Gertzen. I am Marshall Sutcliffe, and boy, do we have a lot of Pro Tour top eights represented in our main feature here right now. So we've got Josh Utter-Leyton. He's a Hall of Famer. He has a stunning resume with 5 Pro Tour top eights on his career, but he's dwarfed by his opponent, who many consider the best Magic player ever. That's, of course, Jon Finkel, sitting on 16 Pro Tour top eights lifetime. I mean, that's more than triple what Josh Utter-Leyton has. You could call that easily 3 Hall of Fame careers wrapped up in one player. Many think he's the GOAT. We're going to find out here. Now, these players are both coming in at 6-3, so very likely that the loser of this match will not have a shot at top 8 anymore. So there's actually quite a bit on the line. Let's head on down. It's time for round number 10 here from Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Simon Gertzen. We're heading into round number 2 of our draft. This is round number 10 of the tournament. And oh boy, we are not messing around in the feature match area this round. In our main table, there he is, looking like he does when he's in a bad spot in a game where he has to grind out some crazy line of play. It's Jon Finkel, 16 Pro Tour top 8s Hall of Famer, of course. In the inaugural cast back in 2005, he plays for Team Ultimate Guard. On the other side of the table, that's Josh Utter-Leyton, also a Hall of Famer. He plays for Team Channel Fireball. He's got 5 Pro Tour top 8s. Now, the interesting storyline here, as we find them clashing against each other in the Brewster draft round here, Simon, is that they're both actually at 6-3. So a solid record, but they're actually on the precipice of losing top 8 contention, and likely the loser of this match will not have a chance at top 8.
Exactly. What we usually say is with 3 losses, you make the top 8. With 3 losses and a draw, you have very good shot at top 8. Most of these records will make it. But if you have 4 losses, of course, there's sometimes somebody sneaking in 8th place, making it on tiebreakers. But if you lose here, you are very, very likely out.
Interesting start here from both players. Josh Utter-Leyton kicks things off with Siren Storm Tamer. Good little attacker on turn 1. It's already chipped in a couple of times. Finkel, Deadeye Tormentor, pretty sad when you don't have Raid. He's just got to get something going here.
Marshall, I have the deck lists here, and you can see that Finkel is on a black-red deck, which looks very solid, but I haven't seen anything that really stood out to me. Whereas on the other side of the table, you see only islands, but Josh is actually on a blue-white deck. And he has Azure, the Lawbringer, in his deck. So
in his hand, actually.
If he can find planes, that's a completely different story.
Here's Deadeye Righauler from Josh Utter-Leyton with Raid to send that Dust Charger prancing right back to hand here into Jon Finkel's hand. He's going to chip in for 2 damage, offering a trade. And then what are the follow-up plays here? Because that attack, not what you would expect. Well, he's just cast the Dust Charger again.
Not so bad, actually. I mean, this is a 7 count, a permanent count of 7. So slowly getting there. And Form of the Dinosaur in hand. A card that has actually caused quite some discussions. Is this actually a good card? How do you play with this card? How do you maximize its effect? It's no Azure the Lawbringer, but it can be a powerful rare.
There's a Sun-Crested Pterodon for Josh Utter-Leyton, the darling of many of the teams. They feel like it's an underrated card in the format, and that a 2/5 with flying and sometimes vigilance actually does a lot more work than it might seem on the surface.
It's just, it blocks so much in the format. 5 toughness. See how Finkel is contemplating an attack here, but even if Josh takes this very conservatively, the Sun-Crested Pterodon is just very likely to survive a block. Of course, Jon is on the next level here. He has Short Strike to punish everybody playing with 2/5s.
Are we really going to see Form of the Dinosaur here?
Well, you think Finkel put it in his deck not to play it?
No, I think he put it in his deck to play it.
I think so too. And
that's my expert opinion.
Sam Black yesterday evening told us he thinks the card is awful. So you see that even these pro teams, they are not all on the same page when it comes to especially the more obscure cards in the format.
By the way, interesting to see Jon Finkel playing black-red stuff here, and that is similar to what we saw Paul Rietzel, his teammate, draft as well. They really do seem to be keyed in on this kind of Grixis-ish control deck.
Very good point, yes. I believe that the Ultimate Guard Pro team has decided that they, if at all possible, want to be in one of the in two of the Grixis colors, and they want to be quite controlling. So ignoring most of the tribal synergies, just generating value, playing a lot of the good removal in the format, and maybe punishing some of the all-in aggro strategies that way.
Here's a Direfleet Neckbreaker, though, for Jon Finkel, and that's going to let that Deadeye Tormentor that he cast so many turns ago attack for 4 now, knocking Josh Utter-Leyton down to 12. Wow, and another pirate, a dinosaur hunter.
Direfleet Neckbreaker is a pretty pushed card.
It's awesome.
Pumping all your attacking pirates, including itself, by 2. That's an uncommon I can get behind. It can be much better even than the cheaper lords that give +1/+1, because if you all you care for is attacking, then maybe you don't care about toughness at all.
That's right. Yeah, it's a very, very potent card. And it looks great on this board state right now. All pirates on the side of Jon Finkel, who's playing this Black-Red Pirates build. And, you know, the people that do like form of the dinosaur tend to prefer it in decks like this that are actually more aggressive, where you can use it to clear away a blocker and press an advantage that you've gained.
And that's maybe a bit counterintuitive, because we would think it's more of a controlling card. You get to fight with your opponent's creatures, but the first part of the card is maybe even more relevant. Setting your life total to 15, that's not something you want to do when you're on 15 or 13. You want to actually go in a racing situation, get your life total low, your opponent thinks, oh, I have him next turn, and then you slam Form of the Dragon, maybe you keep attacking, and they are in a situation where they just can't get out of it.
So as we see a double block here from Josh Utter-Leyton. And that is going to be a 2-for-1 in Finkel's favor as he has recast that Neckbreaker.
Did Josh find a plains? This is the important question, because
he can play Azor here.
Yeah, then Azor would come down, and it's still a tight game, but Azor could turn this around. Waterknot and Pious Interdiction in hand, of course, both not very good at stopping creatures that just have static abilities. Utter-Leyton is almost rare flooded, rare and removal flooded. That's a rare side, but Waterknot, Pious Interdiction, Azure the Lawbringer, and the Immortal Sun, Divine Verdict. That's cards you're happy to have, wow. And somehow still he's not winning this game.
And he's now in the awkward position of playing Pious Interdiction on a Neckbreaker. Its ability will still exist, unfortunately, for Josh, meaning that Finkel's going to get another attack in for 4 at the minimum. He's going to play the Dust Charger, which is going to give him City's Blessing. He's going to attack in for 4, knocking Josh down to 6, and he may just have had too much, not enough mana to deploy the huge number of powerful cards in Josh Utter-Leyton's hand. How did this happen? He has 7 great cards in hand, and he just can't deploy them.
He didn't draw his planes early enough, and he didn't draw the second planes at all. So he was actually, despite all the power in his deck, severely hampered by that.
Yeah, he has yet to be able to cast 2 spells in a turn in the last couple of turns here, and that's really punishing him. You know, if he could have drawn a plains here and said, okay, I'm going to Waterknot your horse, and then I'll play my Exultant Sky Marcher, that could have put him in a decent position to stabilize this board. But unfortunately for him, that is not what's happened.
Josh just barely staying alive here, or maybe not.
Headstrong Brute, you're down to 2, and Josh is in dire straits at this point, facing 2 lethal threats, one of them with Menace.
And John's hand, by the way, is not only Form of the Dinosaur, but also Impale and Bombard.
Oh my god.
Both of these decks look incredibly strong to me.
Yeah, these decks are sick. And we've got 2 world-class players. Oh, and there's Plains number 2 just to tease Josh Utter-Leyton. They also both won their first match of the draft. And look at this, another good draw for Finkel. He can produce multiple lethal threats, and Josh can't even deal with the ones on the board, let alone the unfriendly fire in hand. And that was just a trouncing, even though Josh had a handful of premium cards there. He just could not deploy them in a timely fashion.
Like 4 first picks in his hand.
Exactly. Removal spells, bombs. He had it all, but it wasn't enough because Jon Finkel was able to get on board and stay there, and he's going to win game number 1. We've got a lot of updates from our back tables. I'll give you those right after these messages.
The game I fell in love with, I want people to experience in many different possible ways. And one of the things that I want to see is it expressed itself in a modern sensibility, in the way that people are playing now. And that part of that is going digital. Like, I love tabletop, and we'll continue to make a tabletop game, but we really want to bring out the best experience, the magic experience, the electrifying thing that made me fall in love with the game. We want to have people play that in a digital form.
Rivals of Ixalan is available in stores. Stake your claim. The Golden City of Araska has been found. Build your forces with new vampires, merfolk, pirates, and dinosaurs, and gain the city's blessing. Visit rivalsofixalan.com to find out more.
Welcome back to the feature match here in Bilbao, Spain. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Simon Gertzen, and this is what it's all about here at the Pro Tour. We have 2 Hall of Famers, 2 just fantastic players battling, and not only that, they've both got really nice decks to bring to the table as well. And as it turns out, even though it's pretty early in day 2 here, there's actually a lot on the line for both of these players.
Yeah, what you have to understand is a 5-3 record for a Hall of Famer, for Jon Finkel or Josh Utter-Leyton, that's fine, but it's really unexciting because they know if they want to make the top 8 of the Pro Tour, they need to go 7 wins and a draw. So as Jon Finkel, he has stated that anything less than a Pro Tour top 8 is something he doesn't really care for. Mm-hmm. He's not here for the top 16 finishes, for the top 24 finishes. So for him, this is an elimination match in the most brutal sense. If he loses this match, he will continue playing, but it will be, he didn't reach his goal.
He will be going through the motions and doing his thing, but yeah. By the way, updates on the back tables while we're kind of developing our board here. Andre Strosky up a game over Jensen, who, by the way, is also on Black-Red. Apparently, Team Ultimate Guard's a huge fan of Black-Red because we've got 3 of them so far out of 2 rounds that we've seen.
Sorry to interrupt you,
Go ahead.
Marshall, but we see an interesting attack here. Goblin Trailblazer has Menace, of course, but there are two creatures on Josh Utter-Leyton's side of the board who must be thinking, if I block with Gleaming Barrier and Matter of Dusk, don't I get a really nice trade here?
Yeah, Sure Strike was the card we saw in game number 1. So Josh is going to say, well, do I mind losing my creatures here to Sure Strike?
And of course, we are talking about two very high-level players, so Josh has to understand that there is a trick there. It's not just a trade offer.
But look at the value he gets here. He gets a treasure from the barrier dying, and he also gets a 1/1 life-leaking vampire. And he traded that for a card. He's probably fine with that.
He is, yes. It's just John is also fine with it. He didn't have anything better to do.
So updates real quick
Of
here.
course.
Javier Dominguez is up a game over Lucas Esprobert 2, and Paul Rietzel up a game over Makis Matsukis. So game 1's across the board there. Now what for Josh? Uh-oh. Secrets of the Golden City. Oh, boy. This indicates to me that he's trying to hit land drops. Oh, and he misses his land drop here. This could be devastating for Josh Utter-Leyton and his chances for, well, doing much in this tournament, to be honest.
Yeah, once again, basically too many things, too many good cards in his hand.
And
Not
even
the time
though
to cast them.
John is showing a mono-red side of his deck, no swamps drawn, but he's drawn plenty of red cards to get the job done, and Josh is going to need to find lands, and quickly, although he just did. He drew a Plains off the top of the library.
That's a good start, and he could rely on, or he could try to rely on Everdawn Champion. Of course, that can't get dealt combat damage, but then if John shows a Bombard or one of his many removal spells, suddenly you're taking an insane amount of damage. So this is a situation where you might want to play a Waterknot instead, because
That's the safer play.
Yeah, because it's just going to be safer. There's almost no way for a black-red deck to circumvent a Waterknot.
Josh is going to attack. It looks like he has a 4-mana spell. Okay, this makes sense. He's got a Deadeye Rig Hauler. That's going to bounce the Headstrong Brute there of Jon Finkel. And, not inconsequentially, he also got in with a Vampire for a point of lifelink damage. Those little points can add up in games that can get close, although now we see a Swamp off the top of the library for Finkel. That could be bad news for Josh down the line. In the meantime, John is just going to suck it up and say, okay, fine, bombard it, and get in for another 4 damage. And then he can replay the Brute.
As we've seen so often, the permanent count is at 9.
Yep.
So somehow this is often the turn where you can almost reach it, but not quite.
Ooh, Pious Interdiction off the top of the library for Josh. And Josh, make no mistake, is going to be fully in control mode. He has the Immortal Sun in his hand. He knows if this game goes 4, 5, 6 turns further, he will win it. He needs to stabilize the board, keep his life total high, and I tell you, Pious Interdiction is a good start towards that as well. Yeah,
Yes,
his
and
hand is stacked.
Sometimes you get a bit caught up in the moment, and you don't realize that you have 7 spells in your hand. Your opponent has 1 card.
1 card, or is
Right.
top decking, yeah.
It doesn't matter if you win quickly or not. You just have to survive this middle game. And I think Josh is realizing that these 2 creatures, the 3/3 Menace and a 2/2 Double Striker, or soon to be Double Striker, are the cards he has to be most concerned about.
Deadeye Tormentor was the draw, but Josh is sitting on 6 cards. This is interesting. John is going to play Deadeye Tormentor pre-combat to get the City's Blessing here for Double Strike on the Stormfleet Swashbuckler, a play you almost never see.
So,
but it represents 2 more damage right now.
John had a very clear decision here. The decision was, do I value 2 damage more highly than forcing Josh to discard a random card? Of course, he knew he would take a spell from Josh, but at the same time, he also knew that if Josh is forced to discard the weakest spell in his hand, he's not really getting anywhere because the late game belongs to Josh, and both players know this. So I really like the decision to go for maximum damage here.
And Josh is going to start cashing in treasure just to get on the board here. He's going to play that Everdawn Champion, and that can do serious work if John doesn't have a way to get around it. Brick walling the assault on the ground very effectively. Ooh, Direfleet Neckbreaker off the top of the library. Is that enough? Not quite.
But it was quite a top deck. That must have been one of the best cards to draw here, especially because the other card in Jon's hand, you can see it there, is Buccaneer's Bravado.
Oh, yeah. Buccaneer's Bravado could easily set up lethal here. Josh is going to be compelled to block everything. Actually, he can't, can he?
4-2. We have a 4-2 double strike. We have a 4-2 pirate, and we have a 4-1 menace.
Yeah, it just ends the game.
And Josh was smart enough to Pies Interdiction, one of the menace creatures, but menace is just so good.
And there it is. Buccaneers Bravado says you're taking 10, and that's the match going to Jon Finkel. Oh, Josh Utter-Leyton has to be heartbroken here. He has such a sweet draft deck, and he just never there was a couple of turns where had he hit a land, I feel like he would have been able to pull ahead in both games, and he just missed.
Was his deck maybe a bit too sweet?
Maybe. Honestly, that is a possibility, right? Oh, such a beating for Josh Utter-Leyton, and just another day at the office for Jon Finkel.
Yeah, he just crushes that draft.
Right. Just empties his hand, kills you with 6 cards in your hand. No bigs. On the other side of the table, or excuse me, on the other side of the feature match area, there is William Huey Jensen, your world champion. He's playing against Andre Strosky. And by the way, you may notice we've got 2 purple die. We use the white die to represent +1/+1 counters. So those are actually prey counters. And there's only one place prey counters come from, and that is Tetsamok, though. Is he in the graveyard?
I think it's in the graveyard. He is in the graveyard.
So what happened? Maybe he got countered? Jensen doesn't have another one, right? That would just be
No,
massive.
I think we can assume that these prey counters are going to be irrelevant, but Recover is a card.
Absolutely, and it's one that apparently the team that Jensen plays for, Team Ultimate Guard, valued quite highly. We saw Retail taking them highly.
Yeah, we see a developing storyline where Ultimate Guard team members are just drafting black-red if they can find these colors to be open, and it's not really about tribal synergies, although we see a bit of a dinosaur theme here. But if this was a black-red pirate deck or just a black-red control deck, the Ultimate Guard team members would be just as happy.
Man, you know what happened? Andre Strosky sideboarded in a cancel for Tetsamok, and it worked. He got to cancel Tetsamok as well. So,
and that's a heads-up play. You
really
have
smart.
to find your ways of dealing with Tetsamok or other bombs in the format.
I also appreciate that Andre sideboarded cancel and not the other card, so I don't have to say it on coverage. The other 3-mana counter. Who named that? Who did that? I actually know who named that, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He told
Did
me on
you
Twitter.
made a little bit of an inquiry?
No, I didn't. The information was volunteered.
Pretty big dinosaurs on Jensen's table. We don't see Suncrowned Hunters that often in this format. And this is...
Charging Tuscadon, getting in the red zone, as well as Thrash of Raptors. This is a huge attack.
So this is actually a very complicated board state.
Yeah.
You have to remember.
What's going on here?
You have to remember, Marshall, that every creature has taken 1 damage. So that's the first thing that's relevant. This means that Suncrowned Hunters triggered. Of course, the 1 damage comes from the Forerunner, and now this influences the combat math here.
Yeah. The interesting thing though is the Tuscadon.
It's a 4/4.
Yeah, it's still not big enough to get through the Colossal Dreadmaw, even with the 1 damage on it. Now, I can tell you what Jensen has in his hand. There's only one card I can... I guess there's 2 cards I could think of in the format. There's Dual Shot and Mutiny. And he actually has one of those. He has Mutiny in his hand.
So he knows that if the Colossal Dreadmaw blocks the Tuscadon, that he's actually 1 damage short, but that he will use the Mutiny... he will be able to use the Mutiny after combat to kill the Dreadmaw. Would be great if Andre found a way to just lose both of his other creatures.
Oh yeah,
which is actually impossible. Jensen can always decide to let Andre have another creature. Of course, Mutiny is not the only card that Jensen could have, so it's kind of difficult for Andre to play around that at a cost, and then maybe be punished if it's not Mutiny, but something else.
So you take 4 damage.
That's quite a bit of trample as well.
It was, because 1 damage already on the Pioneer, and then there's Mutiny to clean up the mess here. Swift Warden, the only thing left. There's our crack label team getting in there as well. I love that. But yeah, so Swift Warden facing down Suncrown Hunters, and you can see how Jensen wanted this to go.
Andre has 3 4-mana cards in his hand, so he can only deploy one each turn, and they are not really big enough to fight with dinosaurs yet.
By the way, chat all over it also mentioned another card that could be relevant there, which is Reckless Rage.
Yeah, the uncommon would actually be a punishing card for Andre if he somehow tried to get rid of all his creatures.
Right. All right, so Jade Guardian is the play. Not particularly powerful here.
But it's actually powerful enough because it pumps up the Swift Warden.
Yeah,
and now you
makes
have
it a trade.
a cleaner block on the Hunters, which Jensen doesn't have to offer this trade. Jensen can just say, okay, let me draw some more dinosaurs, or keep this race, keep the tension in this game to maybe win with the Hunter trigger if I draw another dinosaur. But suddenly Andre is back in it, I feel.
Hanging on by a thread. Yeah, no, you're right. That Jade Guardian itself not doing a ton, but that +1/+1 counter actually is really important. Interesting to note the possibilities for draw steps here from Jensen, because one of the cards that you mentioned earlier was Recover, especially when you have Tetsamok. That card tends to go up in value. He didn't actually end up with any of them, though.
Despite Team Ultimate Guard's high evaluation of the card.
8 cards.
And here you can see the sign of a really good player. Andrei Strasky is not only concerned with surviving, but he also realizes Jensen is on 8 as well. I do have the possibility to become aggressive myself, maybe pump up the Jade Guardian, get in half of Jensen's life total, and still have ample blockers for anything that Jensen could do. I like this line a lot better than, for example, trying to get too defensive.
Yeah,
or
this forces the issue. This is a lethal attack.
It also means that both of these creatures would trade with the Suncrown Hunters, a trade that Jensen didn't want to make, and that Forerunner of the Empire, if it blocks, is actually just chump blocking.
Yes. Looks like Jensen's going to go for a double block here.
Yeah, he actually gets the trade that he didn't want to make, but that's still a fine trade on this board, and he's playing around
River Herald's Boon.
River Herald's Boon by double blocking, which is ultimately, if Andre doesn't have the River Herald's Boon, it's not a
doesn't change anything.
It doesn't really affect the board.
Sure. So I go to
4.
Go to 5.
And then remember, there's a trigger as well from the Suncrown Hunters, which is going to knock Andre Strasky down to 5 as well. But Jensen needs something big off the top of the library, and he needs it soon.
Go.
He didn't find anything. He found a mountain. Strasky's up a game as we come in here. He draws Jade Bearer for the turn. This is going to force a chump block again from Jensen.
That's actually huge, right? Because the difference between a 2/2 and a 3/3 is that it actually gets through the Forerunner.
So he has to chump block and go to 1. And the Jade Bear actually looks great here, as it's also a lethal attacker itself. And Kumena's Awakening just to put... Oh, and that's going to do it. William Huey Jensen has to extend the hand. And, we should mention here for Andre Strasky, and Huey Jensen, they were in the same position that our main table was. They were both 6-3. So Jensen extending the hand is him saying, my dream of a top 8 for this PT has effectively come to an end, under all normal circumstances. Andre, on the other hand, still alive. Now, he's got a lot of work to do.
We see a lot of the pros stumbling here, not only in Modern, but also in the draft rounds. And I'm going to go try to catch up with some of them, maybe when the dust has settled a little bit, before we go into the top 8. Talk to them a little bit about their draft strategy, if they're happy with how it played out, or if they regret maybe going for this very linear, one-dimensional thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of different opinions out there right now for this draft format, which is right where you want to be, if you're sitting in our seat, and of course you at home. We're going to hear from John Stern at the Draft Builder over at the news desk. But first, these messages.
welcome back to the News Desk. Marie Bartholdi, Rich Hagan here at the end of round 10.
Would that it were. Would that it were the
Yeah,
end of
that's
round
true.
10. Looking behind us, on the floor, there's still 11 minutes left. Plus, they have a whole bunch of pairing stuff to do, make sure all the pairings are right for the third bit of the third round of the draft. So my hunch is we're going to be in each other's company for about 20 minutes or so before the last round of draft. And you know what, Maria? It's not just the last round of draft here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. It's the last round of draft that we're going to see at the Pro Tour with its long and storied history with small set booster, small set booster.
That's true. I'm getting a little nostalgic.
That's like, yeah, we've had a lot of really great draft sets, and now obviously Magic's a game of change, and we look forward to bringing you a new draft experience every time. But this is one more round to go of the let's open the small set and see what happens. So farewell to Rivals, farewell to that paradigm of how Magic is played in the draft boosters. I've been opening booster packs for more than 20 years now, and I'm looking forward to what's next, because that's what drives Magic forward. But
I asked Paul, and he said Dominaria was awesome.
Well,
and he meant it too.
Mr. Play Design.
I can tell.
In the set I worked on was quite good. Shocker. All right, so let's bring things back to the results that are in, because out behind us, tons of people still playing. But remember, the fourth loss, that's where things are critical. Marshall was saying in the round, Jon Finkel against Josh. The fourth loss, probably the end, because at 6 and 4, your tiebreaks are just going to be permanently bad. So what do we got result-wise?
All right, result-wise here, I've got Andrew Beckstrom at 8 and 2.
Right.
Still in it. Carlos Ramau, 8 and 2.
Right, now he started out 7 and 1, lost his first round to go to 7 and 2, and now up to 8 and 2 for the Brazilian former world champion.
Corey Burkhart at 8 and 2.
Now, what is he on in Modern? Presumably he's Grixis Control. I didn't actually see Corey play yesterday, but I'm pretty sure that he is on Grixis Control. And if he is, we will try and get him across the studio to talk all things Control. That should come your way this afternoon.
All right, so we've got Andrea Mengucci at 8 and 2. He was super stoked, posting about this on Twitter, like, this is the best I've done at a Pro Tour in a really long time. Yeah,
it's interesting that Mengucci is kind of, you think of him as a very confident player. He's a very bubbly personality in real life. But it was interesting that he was kind of giving himself a pep talk after round 1 of the draft, saying, okay, I've won my first round, I'm at 7 and 2. The pod is not that hard, Andrea. Look at who you're playing. You can win 2 more matches.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to see him, in a sense, vulnerable in that way, because he really felt like he needed it. And, well, he's 8 and 2 now, trying to run the table. All right, plenty more results coming our way. But someone who has already won, and you saw him win this round, is Javier Dominguez. And turns out this is a Pro Tour in Spain, so he might like to do quite well. Let's find out how he's feeling with Brian David Marshall.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here on the floor with Javier Dominguez, the World Championship finalist. And of course, you get to be the hometown hero this weekend. What's it like having a Pro Tour in your home country?
Well, it feels great. Obviously, the first thing is I have no jet lag. And I also understand everything what's going on. I go to the supermarket, but honestly, it hasn't felt that much different to other PTs in terms of that, because the first days before the PT were still testing all the time. So until Thursday, it was still the same, because we are still always speaking English with the team. So it's obviously nicer, but still a PT, right?
Yeah. So now tell us a little bit about how your draft went and how happy you were or unhappy when you were done drafting.
Well, I'm fairly happy with my deck. I'm playing Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are red-green. I started, I don't remember where I started. I think with green. The thing is that I just think green was being quite open. And I just like green more than the rest of the colors anyway, so I was like, yeah, why not? And then I just got a few red cards as a support. So it's mostly like a normal green deck, but that's what I'm aiming to draft anyway, so I'm happy. It's a kind of deck I've played most this week, so yeah, I like it.
Now you beat Lucas Esper-Bertu this round. You seize the Rivals table. That means you're going to be sitting in the feature match area until you lose. How many wins do you think you have in you in this draft deck and in your Modern deck?
Well, I mean, I need one more with the draft deck to go for 6-0, so I'm really happy. The Modern deck, I really think it comes down to the matchup. So I could see myself going 5-0, 0-5. Yeah, Modern is about, uncertain. You're never certain of what's going to happen. So hopefully good matchups.
So you're playing one of the more popular decks in the format. You're playing humans. What do you, when you play a deck like that, what don't you want to see?
Well, I guess ground decks like creature decks, Affinity, or creature decks that go over the top of my deck. But yeah, I think that's it. Like, I don't really have a lot of experience with the deck. I'm just trusting my teammates there. Like, so they told me Affinity is bad. So that's, I think it's bad. The rest should be okay. I think Tron is bad too, but I don't really know.
All right, now you said 5-0 right now in draft, looking to go 6-0. What tricks or tips do you have for people who are trying to solve this Rivals of Ixalan draft format, which is very challenging and very skill intensive? What do you think is the secret to doing well in this draft format?
I think the most important thing in Rivals of Ixalan draft is just to have an idea of which kind of decks you can build with each cards, because like cards have a very different value, and you have to be scared of picking like a looking bad card over a very good card, as long as it's gonna fit your deck better. And same goes for like cyber cards. Like, I'd rather pick a very strong cyber card over like a filler, because it's easy to fill your deck with bad cards, like playable cards. So I'm always looking to pick the important cards for the archetype I'm gonna draft, even though they might be like a recover, so a very bad card. But if I'm playing like black-green slow deck, the cards like must have, or a 6/6 or 6, etc. So I think identifying these cards as important is critical to.
So synergy over maybe raw power sometimes?
Well, it's more like raw power in your deck. You know, because sometimes it's not synergy. It's like if your deck needs this kind of card, if your deck needs a fat guy, you have to pick it over like a better card or even a removal spell sometimes.
All right. Well, Javier Dominguez, 5-0, looking to go 6-0 in draft. He's giving you some Rivals of Ixalan tips. He's also the rival right now of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. He's going to be sitting in the feature match area until he loses. Let's see how long he can hold on to the seat here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan.
All right, thanks so much to Brian David Marshall. Now, he's a busy boy, as always. He's been out and about talking with many of the top teams. But obviously, when we head into a Pro Tour, it's all about the gameplay. It's all about, can I find the 73rd, 74th, 75th card for my sideboard to complete the 75 for my constructor deck? It's, can I squeeze in just one more draft to see where I value Sailor of Means within my top 5 picks kind of thing? But Magic isn't always just about shoehorning in the last moment of testing that you can. And when, for a lot of these players, this is their livelihood. They come here to work, but they also want to play. So how do you kind of restore balance? Well, we talked to Team Ultra Pro to find out.
Brian David Marshall here in Bilbao, Spain, and this city is absolutely gorgeous. Steeped in culture, impossible to find a bad meal, and the architecture, well, it's just stunning. But members of Team Metagame Guru's Sun, Metagame Guru's Moon, and Team Ultra Pro are here in town preparing for Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. How much of the city will they get to see? Being a professional gamer might sound like an oxymoron at sometimes. You know, we play games to get away from the stress of our jobs, but how do you find balance when you're a professional gamer? What do you do to unwind? How do you make sure the game is always fun? Let's see what they had to say.
Brewing is kind of that thing for me, like, you know, if I'm getting tired of Magic, even if I don't necessarily think it'll be good for a tournament or something, just building some sweet decks, even if I know I might lose with them a little more, you know, maybe streaming with them or something like that is pretty fun for me and is a good thing to do if I'm just getting tired of grinding, you know, some random standard deck like Energy or something.
I like to sport a lot. I like exercise, so I think that's also important for a Magic player or for any, you know, mental activities. Actually, like physical activity and mental ability goes well together, so I think that helps me a lot.
I like to cook. Like, I play other board games. Playing any board game with Magic players is completely different from playing any board game with people who don't play Magic. Magic is like very effective at just like reshaping how you think about, we'll say narrowly strategy, but probably everything. I mean, like, you can teach like anyone who's serious about Magic any you know, new board game and know that you're gonna have like a pretty like good experience where like they're gonna understand what's going on and what matters, and they're gonna like care about trying to like understand the game and how to like win. They're like gonna be taking it competitively.
So welcome back to the desk. Behind us, we're like 30 seconds left on the main round, so about 10 minutes probably away from round number 3. Rich and Maria here with you. We've got lots more results, and we're trying to keep abreast of all the things that are at the top table. So what else have we got, Maria?
All right, Teruya Kukamai is at 8-2 currently, and David Mines of Australia at 8-2.
Okay, so 2 good results for APAC there. The interesting thing there is that Teruya Kukamai is against Peter Viren, one of the 2 brothers. Generally, at most PTs, in the dark, you can presume that one of them is playing at the Pro Tour. It's not that often they've both played together because they slightly have different eras. Pascal was a Belgian national champion around about 2007, 2008. Peter, the younger brother, came in a little bit later, big on the Grand Prix circuit in the sort of late 2000s and then into the 2010s. Both of them still live for top 8 though at this one. Peter Viren's loss takes him to 6-2-2. That's 2 draws. Meanwhile, Pascal Viren, undefeated, he's just beaten Jerry Thompson to go to 8 wins, no losses, but
2 draws.
Yeah, so again, if you are new to this, and apologies if you've heard this all before, because it's a super important message. Draws are terrible news. Don't go there, okay? Because eventually, in the very last round, you might be 1 point ahead of the curve and know that a win will put you in at 12-3-1. But for the most part, throughout the tournament, your 1 point for the draw is -2. It's 2 behind the win that one of you could have got. And it takes a point out of the system. 1 point for you, 1 point for me. Meanwhile, 3 points there, 3 points there, 3 points there. Draws are terrible. So those 2 draws for both the Viren brothers, not good. However, if you're Pascal, you've not lost yet. You've played 10 rounds, nobody's beaten you. If that stays true at the end of the weekend, he'll be our champion.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, we have a draft builder to show you. So this is not about every pick of every pack. This is, here's our squad. We want to end up with 22, 23, 24 slots, plus some land. How do we get there? And for that, we use our draft builder. Waiting patiently is Paul Cheon with our very special guest, Jon Stern.